Hey guys, I am Big and Scary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring AMR in the top left corner, playing our red Terran, and in the bottom right we have Teonanacatl, who is our blue Zerg. I'm going to call him Nanacat for short. We are on Entombed Valley, I believe, and this is Masters level play. Both players are in Masters. Red versus blue tells me that this is on the ladder. It's basically all you really need to know about the matchup. I like to believe that they're friends in real life, best friends, but in reality they're probably just two strangers passing in the night. Entombed Valley is no stranger to me. I really enjoy this map. He's got a small ramp leading down to the common, natural basically, with a very large ramp leading down into the common ground, which is kind of divvied up by this small chasm. It's kind of prevents the surrounds that Zerg really likes to use out on the common ground, and also kind of divvies up large armies into more manageable chunks. It's really neat. You also have that little back pathway right here, which is kind of circuitous as it leads up to the top right expansion. There's one, of course, on the other side. Overlord leading off into the top right corner, Nanacat making sure that if his opponent spawned up there, his Overlord's going to be in a pretty good position. Unfortunately, it's a cross spawn for him. AMR grabbing a very early gas, getting that super early gas out actually. Buying a little bit of time for his SCV so he can throw down the barracks. Super early gas like that tells me it's going to be more of a tech-based aggression. Could be Reapers, could be Medevac, could be Hellions. Only time will tell. A map like this really favors Medevacs and Hellions over a Reaper play. The Reapers can get caught in the open area, and there's not a lot of hills that they can take advantage of. Reapers would be very successful if it was kind of a left-to-left or right-to-right spawn, but again, I think Hellions are more likely of a build, or the Medevacs. You know, Medevacs are always fantastic because you can get units from behind. AMR, though, has completed his wall off. He's actually just started that supply depot and left with another SCV, and unfortunately that's going to deny the scout from Nanacat. It's going to deny his vision of that super early gas. They've actually stopped mining on that. 150 gas, which is just enough to throw down this factory and an add-on, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's looking a lot like some Hellions are coming out, especially because he stopped mining that gas. Means that the units that he's going to be creating don't rely on that gas, which means Hellions cost 100 minerals, and that's it. Unfortunately for Nanacat, he doesn't know any of that. His scouting is limited to the fact that there are 2 supply depots and a barracks, which doesn't tell you a fantastic amount. It looks like a tech lab was being constructed. No, it is a reactor, so good. A reactor for that barracks means that the reactor is going to be for the factory, which means the reactor is going to be for some Hellions, and he's banking quite a lot of money. So I don't know if he's going to expand behind this or just going to create a ridiculous number of Hellions. Unfortunately, Nanacat has expanded. He's got his natural already up and running, transferring all of his drones. The Queens were actually started at pretty much identical times, a little bit ahead of schedule for that Queen. But that's going to make the larva injects kind of line up, making it so that that macro mechanic is a little bit easier to manage for Nanacat, which is just one of the tricks that the pros do, and it just makes life so much easier. Command center being built for AMR, as well as several Hellions coming out just now. The first Hellion hitting the ground, it's probably going to be used to scout around. No, that factory's just getting kind of quiet. Maybe just didn't have enough money. There goes 2 Hellions. Very good. So an expansion for AMR is going to be using these Hellions to control the map right now. Zergling speed hasn't got it started because there's been no gas for Nanacat. He's got 2 gas coming out and quite a lot of Queens. How many Queens? Just 3? 3 Queens right now, plus the spine means that any aggression coming out from the Hellions is actually going to be in quite a lot of trouble. There goes a 4th Queen. Those Queens can fit on this ramp and really deny the Hellion any movement, and then that spine is really going to make the Hellion's life very difficult. Just 3 Hellions coming out right now, but another 2 on the wings. They're going to be able to reinforce very quickly, depending on where the aggression is going to go. That 2 gas is going to be spent for the Roach Warren, which is another excellent choice for Nanacat to deny this sort of aggression. Roaches take 0 damage from Hellions, and they're very quick on creep, which means that they can close in on these Hellions and do quite a lot of damage, probably even more damage than a bunch of Zerglings could be spent. Ooh, kind of supply blocked right now, though. And even though that Roach Warren is done, he doesn't have the money to get a bunch of roaches out. Going to have to rely on his queens. Those Hellions do manage to make it into the creep, but only a couple of them. Wow, all of them managed to shimmy their way up the ramp. Those queens not on hold position and only one deep means that they do manage to squeeze their way in. Only 2 of them make it to the probe line, though, and they're already in the red. They go down. 4 workers killed total. However, that's quite a lot of Hellions that have gone down, and the resources lost tab tells you the whole story. 55 to 200 dead. Harvester count greatly in the favor of Teonanacatl. Looks like he's taking a 3rd as well as 2 extra gas over at his natural, already transferring those workers. The natural just now being saturated for AMR. He's got a lot of Hellions still out on the field and a couple of Marauders to boot, because those Marauders are fantastic against roaches. So if there's going to be a push from Teonanacatl, those Marauders are going to be very key in defending them. Oh, this wall destructible debris has not gone down. These drones are going to be very exposed to the aggression coming out from the Hellions. They catch them in the common ground on the low and get plenty of pot shots, only managing to pick off 3 right now before the Queen can react. But the Hellions, it's really the roaches that you need to worry about. There's 9 of them coming out right now. Haven't been made yet. I would have expected more to be made, but it looked like Teonanacatl was comfortable with the small lead he had by taking out those Hellions, and the 4 queens once again having to go to work. Oh, the roaches finally popping out, managing to meet the Hellions at the ramp, not managing to close off the ramp, and the Hellions make it in. A little bit more of a successful run this time. 13 workers killed, but again the units lost tab showing you that there is a bit of a deficit there, and each one of those drone kills comes at a loss. Right now Zerg leading Terran by half. No double gas. Oh, there we go. Double gas down at the 3rd, which means that Teonanacat's going to be working on his tech for quite a while. Probably gearing up for an airbase play, just because you need quite a lot of gas in order to finance the air, but that's a bit premature for him. He's going to have to deal with a lot more aggression coming out from AMR. It looks like his roaches are moving out to take some of that common ground, take control of the map, basically, and buy Teonanacatl enough time to get the tech out that he wants. 2 Evo chambers, he'll be working on those upgrades. Looks like the SCVs are beginning to transfer, even though a 3rd has not been taken just yet. I wonder where they're going. Oh, they were going to defend. He was afraid that those roaches were going to be moving up. He had 2 bunkers on the high ground filled with Marauders. He was not going to be in any danger. There's not nearly enough roaches on the field, just 9 of them, to pop that front door. Well, it looks like a factory. Another 2 factories. 4 factories total constructed in AMR's base. He's got a lot of tech labs on them, and that reactor is still going strong, churning out those Hellions. So the mech play in AMR is pretty much in full swing right now. He's getting some missile turrets down just for the added defense. Hasn't seen any aggression out of Teonanacatl yet, and he's got to be concerned that maybe a Spire is going down and maybe some Mutalisks are on the way. Instead of that, we have a 4th coming out for Teonanacatl, just now popping, and the creep spread's actually top draw for Teonanacatl. He's got quite a lot of queens, and he's using them to the best of his advantage, as well as the roaches up by the watchtower to keep control of that. Probably going to be worried about the backwards pathway for the Hellions just to manage to swing in there, but the losses there would be minimal. You need to get a 4th base up. You need to get the economy in full swing. Wow, 83 harvesters. He's nearing that 90 harvester sweet spot. Overlord in the area of the 3rd. To deny that, he's got creep spread, and this takes around a minute for the creep to fully leave once the Overlord gets pushed back by a single Marine. The siege tanks are out right now. Siege mode is just about to finish. Oh, wow, look at this. Teonanacatl deciding to push with a small number of Zerglings. It looks like they fall very quickly. Should scout the siege tanks. These roaches should know that they can't take that many Marauders and siege tanks. Instead, they decide to push, and they're going to go down almost instantly with a very small amount of loss for AMR compared to the massive one for Teonanacatl. The resources loss showing you that, the 2 Hellion raids really didn't pay for themselves, but all of a sudden that aggression out of Teonanacatl kind of evens the playing field. A lot of Zerglings and Infestors coming out, a bit of a tech switch for Teonanacatl. Those Zerglings' hypermobility will allow him to answer back very quickly to any pokes from the Hellions, and here comes a very small poke. These Hellions have been weakened already, and they, with the Blue Flame upgrade, are going to go to work on all of these harvesters. That 83 harvester count down to 77 right now. Still, the income is absolutely through the roof, especially on gas, which is going to begin to pile up as the tech, wow, look at all that tech being built. There's a massive amount of tech and a massive amount of infestors, so that's where all the gas is going. Not a lot of Zerglings out. You need something to protect the infestors, but it looks like another wave of Zerglings, a small wave of Zerglings pushing up at the third. 2 CCs being built on the high ground. That's a tight wall off. Those Zerglings aren't going to manage to squeeze through. A lot of siege tanks on the high ground just now sieging up, catching one Hellion off, but that buys the siege tanks enough time to get in full siege mode. All the Zerglings melt instantly, and then all the infestors follow suit very shortly after. We had about 10 for that push, and only 2 of them survive. Pulling back, wow, 5 factories being built, 3 of which are over in the third right now. So AMR is getting his production in full swing. 2 more armories being built in the main, and by more I mean period. So there's your upgrades for the ground army. Ground army for Teonanacatl is just the 1-1 right now. He's got 2-2 underway. And another poke from the Hellions down in the bottom left corner. This time there is a 4th there. The creep's pretty good. It's going to give him Teonanacatl a bit of a warning that the Hellions are underway. Not the saturation down at the 4th is not very high. It hasn't really recovered from the earlier aggression from the Hellions, but the gas is really what you want to save, and it looks like that has gone completely untouched. 3 harvesters on each one. The Zerglings react very quickly, catching those Hellions before they can do any damage to the gas income, which is, almost 4 digits right now. 86 to 68, so Zerg economy is in full bloom. We have a hive being built as well as a spire. I'm not going to spend all day searching all of that creep, because in the end you'd miss this small push from Teonanacatl right here at the 4th, which is so very, very exposed. Oh, catching some siege tanks, also exposed. 3 of them get surrounded by the Zerglings, and they go down. Not a lot of infestors in this group. A couple of fungal growths down on the Hellions, but all that does is funnel the Zerglings into a choke, and they get eaten up very, very quickly from the combined AoE of the siege tanks and the Hellions. Again, Teonanacatl has to pull back again. The resources lost tab, just showing you how bad those engagements are for Teonanacatl. AMR really making the cost efficientness, how unexpensive the the mech can be for AMR. Really, just making it aware that even though he's losing a lot from the Hellions, what he's doing is buying time to get the siege tanks up, buying time to get the Thors up, which he's actually got 4 underway right now. Another tech switch for Nana, going back to the roaches instead of the Zerglings, which have proven to be just too delicate. He does have the 2, but he's also getting level 3 melee, so maybe he's... Well, no, that's weird. He's getting the Corruptors, so maybe he is getting the Zerglings and Ultralisks later, just preparing for that eventual tech switch. AMR, though, has succeeded in taking and holding his 4th. He's positioning his army in 2 places, over by the natural ramp. The 3rd is pretty well defended with the choke, minor choke, as well as the constant stream of reinforcements. But the 4th is very undefended, only 2 siege tanks in the planetary, but fortunately the mech army can reposition quickly enough to reinforce it. At the same time, Teonanacatl has grabbed 2 different expansions in the bottom left corner, and is holding the watchtower. So he's feeling rather stable. Also, his economy is in full bloom. Harvester count is pretty much even, but the gas income is sky high. He's getting a lot of broodlords out on the field, 7 of them being warped in, and by warped I mean cocooned in. But those broodlords will be very effective later on. They need to have a lot of anti-air against them from mech, and the only thing that can give you anti-air are these Thors. No starports out on the field just yet for Teonanacatl. I expect once those broodlords get exposed that we will see a couple Vikings being brought into the mix. Hey, there goes that first starport right now. Maybe there's a scan somewhere that I missed from AMR, but hey, both players are 200 over 200, so we're definitely going to see some aggression very soon. AMR hasn't moved out with anything besides Hellions just yet, and it looks like Teonanacatl is positioning to either he knows about this hidden 5th, or he's going to be poking at the 4th, which, like I said, is very exposed. And with the Terran mech army moving down, moving down into the common ground, that 4th is going to be even more exposed. Got to be careful with these broodlords, though. These broodlords moving up to the north side. Oh, a very fortunate scan from AMR, just double checking to make sure his 4th was secured. And in the end, sees the broodlords, knows that the ground army cannot be far behind. At the same time that Teonanacatl is moving into this third, he's moving off. AMR is moving with several battle groups of Hellions, making it into the unsaturated fourth and third. The third going down almost instantly with saturation. The Queen's going to get covered up completely. The Broodlords are left to engage in the third. AMR's responding with his Thors, but the Roaches and the Infestors are getting pulled back to deal with this aggression out of AMR. Wow, the Harvester count, which was almost at 90 a couple seconds ago, is down to 55. The saturation in all of these bases are absolutely shot to pieces. Only a handful of Broodlords left now. Only 2 Thors, but those Thors are being repaired very quickly by an absolute bundle of SCVs. Those SCVs are getting targeted down, but unfortunately with only a handful of Broodlords, I think the Thor's going to win this. It looks like he's getting healed faster than the Broodlords can do damage. Massive hit. Look at all those guys just bundled up on a single mineral patch. And, you know, the harvester count has been cut in half. The mineral income has been cut in half. Gas income is still pretty high, but the bank for Teonanacatl is large enough that he should be able to re-macro quickly enough. The Broodlords have indeed gone down. 0 economic damage was done by Teonanacatl to the infrastructure of AMR. AMR hasn't lost any unit producing structures, and he hasn't lost any saturation on any of his expansions. 0 of his expansions have gone down, and in the end, Teonanacatl threw away an entire army for the army of AMR. But I think AMR actually came out on top of that, because even though the wars were even, this right here tells you the whole story. We have a single drone working at an entire expansion. Over on the fourth is looking equally barren. The natural is completely mined out. We've got a lot of stagnant drones there, and the main is only a handful of drones there either. Conversely, AMR mining away with those mules, mining away with the SCVs. Third still going strong, and the natural is almost mined out. Just a couple of minerals left there, but they have a base ready to receive those SCVs. Oh wow, a lot of roaches being spent up here. Quite a lot of Thors, but remember, Thors don't do extra damage against roaches. Some mind control going down on the siege tanks, which do extra damage. So that's a really good play by Teonanacatl. Quite a lot of Broodlords in the air, but small number of Vikings firing away with minimal air support from the Corruptors. All of a sudden, all the Thors are dead. No siege tanks remain either. These Roaches are pushing up into the reinforcing. 3 more Thors pushing down with a couple of Hellions. These hero Roaches just pushing back all the way. The Corruptors are definitely being overextended now with the reinforcing Vikings. We can see 5 more Thors coming down. These Roaches are going to get cleaned up, but a very good hold against that aggression from AMR. Wow, those Broodlords are very exposed though, and the 3 Hellions that are on the field really don't have to contest with anything. Couple Corruptors popping out just now, more than a couple. These guys will either quickly become Broodlords, but no, there's no gas. Teonanacatl has spent every bit of bank that he had left over. As his harvester count recovered, yeah, it's back up to 60, and you can see that the supply is very near max. So 60 is about where you want to be when you're dealing with max supply. The 90 is very helpful to get that max, but then once you have the max, you kind of want to phase out the drones. So it's probably not the way that Teonanacatl wanted to lose those drones, but in the end, that is the number he's looking for. Some Hellions coming down into the, I don't even want to guess what expansion this is. You got to be very careful if those drones there are harvesting gas. It looks like the Hellions, though, are going to be caught by a fungal growth. Going to get cleaned up by the Zerglings, but something that AMR's been doing that I've noticed is every time he pokes, he moves and takes another base. Pokes at the front and then takes another base. He's got a lot of SCVs transitioning over to that base, and Teonanacatl is probably feeling cramped right now. He doesn't have a lot of money. He can't afford to continually throw away armies, and on the other hand, AMR is completely maxed. He's keeping quite a lot of money, and these Hellions are basically being suicided in to free up supply so that AMR can change those Hellions supply into Thors or siege tanks or Vikings, which the Vikings especially are going to become increasingly more important. Thors are great at anti-air, but 8 for Vikings against 14 Corruptors. The number of losses that really count in these late game Terran versus meching Terran is really in the air. You really got to control the air, and that's exactly what AMR is trying to do, moving out with these Vikings, just to see how many Corruptors are in the field. Oh, good fungal growth from Teonanacatl catches half of the Vikings, which go down very quickly. Quite a lot of Thors, but this is something you never want to see in the middle of a battle. Nothing being built, nothing to reinforce this. These roaches, not a lot of them on the ground right now, and they're being focused down by the Thors, which is actually pretty good for Teonanacatl. He wants the Thors to focus down the roaches rather than to deal with the Broodlords. A lot of them in red, a lot of them not having a lot of health. Corruptors trying to draw their fire too. Wow, 6 Broodlords being morphed in on the low ground, 6 more Vikings underway. So I suspect we've got several more starports up in the top left corner with reactors. The roaches not doing their job drawing that fire. The Thors firing up into the air to kind of target down those Broodlords. This is a massive push from Teonanacatl. Again, he can't constantly reinforce like AMR is. AMR is constantly chewing out units and gnawing down the force that Teonanacatl has out on the field. All of a sudden, he's being engaged from 4 different fronts. His units are completely surrounded. All the Broodlords are going down. Only 3 of them remain on the field. The Infestors are completely out of energy, and the Corruptors are going to get cleaned up once the Broodlords are down. So Teonanacatl just pushed a little bit too far. He can't reinforce with anything. He's almost completely out of money. So is AMR, but AMR has 7 more Thors underway. And again, no economic damage has been done to AMR. Only units lost, only money. And as they're coming out even, the heavy drone hit that Teonanacatl took and hasn't really recovered from, he's not going to be able to re-macro as quickly as a Zerg would expect in this situation. So I feel like Teonanacatl is feeling cramped, 160 to 108, 110 supply. So he's going to be significantly behind on the army count, and it looks like AMR knows it. He's pushing out with a small battle group of Hellions again, and the Thors are going to sit at home, kind of defending. Excellent creep spread out of Teonanacatl, though. I mean, he's taking up pretty much half of the base right now. Those Hellions are going to make it into the bottom left corner, one of the few places that are actually mining minerals. 70 harvesters just now recovering back to that place he really wants to be, and all of them die so very, very quickly. Oh, those Hellions are terrible for just doing damage. A lot of Infestors coming in, some chain fungals are going to clean this up, but instead of expanding this time, AMR just wants to push out, bringing along several SCVs to make the Thors last longer. No siege tanks now. It looks like he's transitioned over to only building siege tanks, Thors, and a couple of Vikings for that aggression. A lot of Infestors, but Infestors in and of themselves aren't enough to deal with this unit composition. He needs a lot of Broodlords and Corruptors, which are units he can't afford. He's got absolutely no money. Teonanacatl is in a lot of trouble. This Thor army mix is going to be pushing down south, and this is where the money is being made. Yeah, the unit producing structures are in the bottom right. That's where all the tech is. But if you really want to cripple the economy, this is exactly where you want to push, and AMR knows it. The Infestors having to expend a lot of money getting out the infested Terran just to draw some of that fire, but only a handful of Broodlords exist to do the damage necessary to bring down this army, and he's not going to be able to do enough. So many Thors basically one-shotting the Broodlords. The infested Terran kind of have to pull back. But what a massive battle. I have to get rid of the UI just to show you how many Thors there are, and they're pushing into the third. GG from Teonanacatl. Fantastic game out of both players. AMR just showing you grade A Hellion harass, sending it off into 3 different directions was absolutely crucial, and totally won in the battle just right there. Just destroying the saturation here, and then over off into the main was killing stroke, and Teonanacatl never really recovered, never had the money, the economy necessary to re-macro, even though he did quite a lot of damage. That hold up here wasn't as heartbreaking as I expected, because Teonanacatl couldn't follow through with the punch. He took out AMR's standing army, but just had nothing to re-macro with, only had some Infestors later on, and he's probably praying that there was a way to transform those Infestors into Broodlords. That's it for me, guys. If you have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Big and Scary. Bye.